We'll finish her.
The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Stephen Sakach here with my co-host, Mike Liwski, and our special guest today. But first, a little stat here. According to Deloitte report, 74% of employees say they want more flexibility and meaning in how they work. Yet many organizations still rely on outdated structures to prioritize control over creativity. And as new technologies redefine the boundaries of work, companies are being challenged to reimagine connection, collaboration, and what trust can look like. And today we're exploring how leaders can design work models that empower people and create cultures where both business and humanity can thrive, and also a technology that helps bring some of this together. Mike, introduce our guest today.
Oh, I am absolutely delighted for this opportunity, Stephen. So yes, our guest today is none other than Patrick Cowden. He is the CRO, and I want to make clear that that doesn't stand for Chief Revenue Officer. He is the Chief Relational Officer and architect of Warmspace. It's a company that's dedicated to restoring human connection in the workplace, which we know our world needs a lot more of. Patrick, as well as a leadership expert, he's an author, a global speaker who's spent over 25 years helping organizations bridge the gap between performance and purpose, which we know we love to talk about on the show. He's a former executive at Dell, Hitachi, and Deutsche Bank. And then Patrick as well has built a global reputation for transforming how teams work and they connect. And through his organization, Warmspace, he helps companies design environments where people feel seen, valued, and deeply engaged. So Patrick, we are so delighted to have you on our show today. Welcome to our show.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Stephen. It's always good to be in the room with allies. You know, this foundation that you guys speak of, you live it with your own teams. You know, you bring it into the world in everything that you do. And it is a foundation that's important, not just to us, but our kids and grandkids, our neighbors, our moms and dads, just, you know, anyone we would value in life, which should be everyone, by the way. We wish them to be seen and valued. We wish them to be appreciated for their contributions, regardless how small or how big they may be. So it's just really a pleasure and honor to be in a place where bliss actually matters, where we matter. And glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. I want to make sure we talk about Warmspace up front here, because this is one of those rare bliss technologies out there. I'd say a group from our staff got to experience it and had a great time. And for our audience, can you describe Warmspace to them?
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you, Stephen. It's, you know, we've architected a way to do all the things we just said. You know, we've architected a way to do all these great books you read about, you know, where purpose and connection and trust and, you know, really the best of the best kind of comes together in a manner that's befitting for everyone, regardless of who they are and where they're from. And that's really, really hard to do. It's probably the hardest thing to do in organizations, you know, strategies and structures and technologies and process. You know, there's so much stuff it's hard work, but we do it. We do it every day, all the time. But true connection, trust, that deep feeling that I'm good, really, it's the hardest thing to establish in the midst of all the transactional reality of everything moving faster all the time. So I knew 2 decades ago that was going to be really hard. I was running Dell, the largest market in the world outside the US for Michael Dell. And we're squeezing the machine. You're squeezing humanity out. And I said, you know what? It's going to be really hard for us to get it back in. And for us middle managers, you know, if we're not own the company, it's really, really hard. So Warmspace has become a container and a vehicle that can carry that into business processes, into daily routines into operational realities. It works on screen like here for about the 26% of people that work on a screen, but it also works for the 74% in the world that don't, at schools, teachers, factory workers, and hospitals, doctors, nurses, on the streets, construction workers, people that where we could insert that type of tiny process into the work process at the front of a shift, at the end of a shift. So the intent was to build something we could put in anyone's hands, where you just push a button and it turns your team on and it establishes that baseline that you need to go do the toughest of things, the hardest of things, together, united, together, right? So Warmspace kind of represents an architecture, we call it relational intelligence. It's going to put AI in its place, serving us, not the other way around. And it beats the pants off of AI without even trying hard, right? So it's really cool. But it was kind of meant for managers, like for us, because it's really, really hard to teach yourself this stuff. It's really, really hard to find a way to actually institute it or get it into your business or your company. So we're hoping that very tiny insertion protocol that gets it right at the front of a meeting, back of a meeting easily will help make a difference. So that's the best way to summarize it. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And we love it. Patrick, you mentioned trust in that. So you've said the future of work is not about technology, but about trust. What do you mean by that?
Well, I call it the human factor. And now here's the funny part. Not just the future is about trust, but everything since we've tamed fire as organized humans has been about trust. Aristotle, the last thing he wrote before he died, he was an old guy. He was Alexander the Great's teacher, by the way, right? And the last thing he wrote, last treatise he wrote, and he was over 70 years old. But for at the time, made you like really old back then, right?
Yeah.
The title of that was Friendship. And he called out that Concord. Trust is the foundation of society. Without trust, there is no society, he said, right? So it's always been a fact. And those of us that have been around long enough, it was what made the difference 43 years ago when I started work. Actually, 46 years ago when I started working. So that really, now everybody understands, damn, he's a really old guy. So trust is the foundation of operational excellence. We learned this in the whole continuous improvement, Six Sigma, lean, agile world, right? Without trust, there is no excellence. Quality falls down when we're not connected, right? And so it is essential, always has been essential, and always shall be essential. We've overemphasized process and technology and results and shareholder value and all that stuff for way too long. And we've lost connection to that human component. So it is the only thing that really matters, to be honest. When we get older, we know our relationships are the only thing that really matter. And all the ones we broke, we're sad forever. I've got a daughter I haven't seen in, you don't want to know how long. I hope that she shows up someday, maybe on my last day, maybe when I take my last breath. And she looked down at me and she spit on me. And I'd be the happiest guy on the planet if she show up and spit on me, because at least she took the time to partake in my life again, right? So it really does matter. And organizationally speaking, it's the biggest deal ever, because as we automate with technology, the human factor becomes crucial, because now we got to fix it when AI can't. It means we got to fix it with people we've never seen before from all of the different parts of the company and organization we've never, ever connected with before. And we've got like 32 minutes and 14 seconds to get it done. Guess what? What if we could establish trust in 70 seconds, like we did a while ago before the show? Because that's all we got. So we got to be able to do it in 70 seconds. Now we go get it done. And we learned this in the military. We worked 5 years with police teams. It is the foundation to make sure everyone comes home safe, right? Because life depends on it. And I think that's key. Now, of course, with Warmspace, we're saying technology and trust kind of go together, because we need the process to establish that ritual that we train in the military and with police teams. We train none of that in companies, not really. right? So that combination is important, that we have an easy way to build trust through connection, because that's where it comes from. Trust is an outcome. It is not the input criteria to get us there. That's something else. Thank you.
That's a key point, a key factor there. So I'm actually very excited to dive into this next topic, because since COVID, we've been working remote. There's been the advent of this hybrid work model and working from home, and now it really seems like it is under attack. And I would say maybe it's because, right, there's lack of trust that's going on from the leadership. And many of these leaders today, they talk about flexibility and the hybrid work models, Patrick, but then really few of them, I would say, transform how the teams connect. So I'm curious in your thoughts on, what is it that innovative work models, for example, what do they look like when humans are connected? And then how is that, then built into the design of those work models?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's a reason, Mike, that's so important, is because everything has moved faster and faster around us. And this human factor, we've done nothing to improve it or accelerate it. We've left it to chance. Right. We kind of leave it to chance. If I ask a CEO or CFO, even more importantly, it's okay. Just trust. It's one of your leadership principles. Trust is essential. Trust culture. Whatever. And I go, okay. Tell me, how do you ensure trust? What's your process? And they're like, what do you mean process? I said, well, how do you ensure trust is happening? Oh, yeah, leaders, managers, they do that. Oh, how do you ensure that they do that? Yeah, we train them up. They got the program, we got the books, we got them trained up, and they do it. Well, how do you ensure that they're actually doing it like today, in real time? Yeah, we trust them. It's trust, right? So we're trusting them. I said, okay, so now we got it. You leave it to chance. The most essential ingredient for the success of your organization, you do not have any mechanism or process to ensure that a high level and consistent high level of quality is taking place in your company. You're leaving it to your managers. Well, thank you very much. Now, if your life depended on it, you're going to leave it to the surgeon. And is he trained? It's open brain surgery. Just going to leave it to chance, or you're going to make sure you're the best surgeon in the world to go into your, do this thing with you, right? So it's really, the work models have moved so quick that we've left that component behind, and we always felt you can't ensure it because it's a human thing, and because of that, we haven't developed that component at the same speed that we've accelerated process, technology, execution, CRM, all the systems we put into place. And I was there in the 80s when we did what was called business process re-engineering. I'm part of the problem. I took humanity out and sliced it into 1,000 little pieces and put it in 14 different countries and outsourced it to people that don't even speak our language, right? And now we're in the mess that we created ourselves, right? So I think that the problem with a lot of the work models is so complex and so culturally challenging to get that into place. It's almost impossible to do unless you're a startup or a very small organization, because these transformations, they fail, right? And they fail again for the same reason, which is lack of connection and trust, right? So that really, you got to get into micro mechanisms, insert those micro mechanisms in every single part of your organization, do that seamlessly, invisibly, quickly, yesterday. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point, right? Because I see this in a number of different places in our society. I mean, have you ever seen a society lose its trust with a bank, right? And what happens there? Or even in the stock market, when we lose our trust in our leadership or in the CEO of a company, right? What happens there? And even in our own work as a marketing agency, we do a lot of work when, say, for example, an account manager might leave. And now there's a new relationship manager that gets in there. There's this question mark around trust, right? And we have to do so much to make sure that the trust that has been built up doesn't, and that gets lost in that situation, it remains connected, right? And remains at a high level.
Hey, Patrick, thinking about Warmspace, and you were talking about this a little bit, with trust and how do you sure your trust is being, measured or whatever. How can leaders measure the quality of connection within their teams? Warmspace does a really good job with some metrics around this. Can you kind of walk through that a little?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, classically, you're looking at, studies, engagement studies or questionnaires or surveys is what you usually are doing. And you do those, if you're lucky, once a year, right? And by the time you get it analyzed and broken down and whatever, it's almost 6 months later. So it's really tough. Now there's a lot of new mechanisms and technology coming out that can kind of like measure mood or measure, how folks are in your organization. So you're starting to get more visibility, but you don't really have a real-time assessment of how things are all the time for every team everywhere, right? And we feel that for the future of an organization that really wants to become more dynamic, let's call it more fluid, that visibility of the human factor is the most crucial element you need to have. If you don't have that visibility of the invisible state of your teams, there's no way you can manage it or improve on it or mobilize it or shift it or whatever, right? So we think that baseline is important. With Warmspace, what we're starting to do is we just sense and measure in every single flow, even if it's a 70-second flow, the energy, the relational bonds, and the essence of what people are feeling and what's surfacing in those relationships. And that gets consolidated through AI, through technology. So now we're using AI in a smart way, right? So if I have 20,000 employees and they all go through this 70-second process and we measure the energy before and behind, we get all the essence of their words, I could have one consolidated paragraph that tells me the true state of my whole organization that they said, not a survey of a couple people like a poll for politicians. I'm talking about the true state of 100% of your population this morning, right now. And then break it down. Oh, let's see New York. Let's see Florida. Let's see whatever. Let's see the factory people. Let's see the sales guys. What's the essence of what's going on? And the essence gets us later to the purpose thing, right? So that combination of being able to align and commit the resources, the human resources of your organization to the task at hand, to the mission at hand, but in a quality where connection and trust is the fuel that makes sure it moves is the highest possible quality. That's unheard of. I mean, normally you'd say, how the hell do you do that? But yeah, so that's what we're surfacing. That's what we're putting together. And later, clients will have a dashboard on their screen where they see the real state. But here's the other part. We also then intervene into that state. So when we see it, or our AI sees it starting to fall down, it proactively intervenes. It puts flows into place to reestablish that connection, to rebuild that trust in real time. Why wait until the CEO sees it 5 days later? Because his desk is full. No, we can grab it proactively. And all of a sudden now you start to get an organic, fluid, alive organization because now we're breathing together, adjusting together, and improving together our state, because then we can fix the other stuff better.
Yeah, this is, I love how we can use AI to, I always say, to prompt us to be better people if we work on it. And it's really quite a kind of significant thought process you've gone to make this all work in real time. It's kind of beautiful. But we know statistically, like high trust cultures, they see 50% higher productivity, 76% more engagement. On this show, we like to talk a lot about systems and rituals. So, Warmspace would be a great system on there. What kind of systems and rituals have you seen that help maintain connection for people in these kind of fast-paced environments with, you mentioned 20,000 people or something that's trying to organize, herd cats, I guess, a lot of times.
Yes, it is. Yeah, Stephen, it's right. You're right. I mean, historically, we've always had stuff of how we did that in the past. We got together, we did things, we had events, we took the time to, I had 400 people at Dell. I walked around and shook in Germany, we shake hands when we say hello, even though we work together every day. So I shook everybody's hand on the way in. It took me a while, to get to my office. But I went and said hello to everybody, right? And because we were all in one location back then, right? We were all together, right? That doesn't happen. That rarely happens anymore. And through the pandemic, we demolished what was left of that. That connection was still happening, especially in the vast majority of really good leaders with really good intentions that figured it out. When they cut the cost component, we just paid lunch ourselves from our own pocket, right? We just took care of people. If we felt someone was not doing good, we sent Martha home. She's got the kids and something's going on. We take care of it. We take up the slack. Teams have always had this ability to connect and move and shift for the good of the collective all, I guess you could call it. That's almost socialist or communist, you would think. But we Americans were great at that. We make the greatest teams in the world, right? And those teams, they take care of each other. But see, what has happened in these fast-moving environments, especially through the pandemic, is we lost those connections. Things have become hybrid, and now, companies are panicking. So they go like, okay, we're mandating back to office. Everybody goes in the office, they hide in corners and do Zoom calls. We go do workshops with Warmspace in person, right? Because the tech works best in person. And we got like these people in a room going through the team building, and they're like, oh, it's good to see you. I mean, they now work in the same office, but they don't interact. They don't go to lunch. They just sit back-to-back meetings because productivity now is 10 back-to-back Zoom meetings, right? So we've lost something that's essential, and you can't mandate it. You can't order it. You can't train it. You either do it or you do not. There is no try. A very wise person once said, right? So that's it. You either do it or you don't. And if you don't have rituals or processes or technologies, we call it social fabric, right? Then you're leaving it to chance. And what's happening right now is we've disengaged to protect ourselves. And the symptoms are you go on a Zoom call and nobody has a video on, right? They're not present. They're doing 50 other things. They're just trying to survive the day, and survive is not thrive, right? And we're losing it. And we're losing our responsibility as leaders because we got to take care of people, because if we don't, it's going to fall apart at some point. And it is falling apart at some point. And the big CEOs of big organizations, they just got to understand, mandating back to office, you've just lost it. You've just lost it because 50% of your good people going somewhere else. Right. And you just lost it. And I got to tell that to Michael Dell, Mr. Michael Dell. I used to work for you, brother. Listen, you better sit down and start thinking about it. I know you got $100 billion now. You're a happy guy. I get it, right? But listen, there's a chance here to change the legacy. There's a chance here to set it up so that every generation that works at Dell for the next 1,000 years will remember the day you made that choice for the people, of the people, and by the people. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good point, right? Because it creates a lot of destruction in those not considering everyone's needs and their points. Maybe diving a little bit further into this point about technology and as well as systems. So as we've experienced, right, Warmspace really focuses on restoring the humanity and the connection through technology. How is it that systems can actually sort of balance this digital efficiency that we've all tried to create for maybe the last 3 decades? How does it balance that digital efficiency still with that emotional depth?
Yeah, I mean, you can't really separate one from the other. We try, which is why it doesn't work so well.
Right.
We're social emotional animals. And all the science knows this, right? It's really clear. We have to honor that. When we start to honor that, we set a baseline, a new baseline. And some of that's technology. We were an example, and many more technologies will emerge, right? That help us kind of put a fabric into the fabric. People always talk about the DNA of a company. Well, the DNA is the sum of all your processes, structures, technologies, and things that you do and how you get things done. And some parts of that are called culture, right? So if you were going to design it, architect it, where's that little red thread, that human thread, that emotional thread, that psychological safety, Google, when they did their Aristotle project, where is that happening? And what are the micro mechanisms you're using to ensure, like I always say, that it is happening? Don't leave it to chance, make it a standard that you utilize across the organization. A later version of Warmspace will have your whole agenda in Warmspace, and it will change and adjust it based on the realities in the room to conform to the people that are there, what their current needs are to get the task done that they're there to do together. That can be done in an alive and fluid manner. You will never do a meeting on another platform again when you have a platform that can generate that agility and aliveness, human component, and the emotions associated with it. We need to be vulnerable. We need to cry when it's needed. We need to be angry where necessary. We need to articulate, but we always need to keep dignity and respect in the room, right? And make sure we don't dishonor that. So there's a lot of stuff in that answer, but it's a lot of stuff, right? Yeah. And that's why we're saying is if we don't use technology on that, a lot of stuff, we'll never manage it. That's why the Gallup study that you started with, Stephen, that thing hasn't changed in 21 years. And it's actually now deteriorating since the pandemic. And we never got it over 21%. It's like you're paying 100% money and 80% of your people are not engaged, like totally not. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, right? To rethink that. But I think that's so true. I think about it a little bit in a different terms is, giving that point of humanity and connection the oxygen that it needs, right? Because if you don't give it that, of course, it's not going to grow. So delving into standard topic really for us on this show is around purpose, and been super excited about delving into this. We know, and McKinsey even found, right, that employees that really feel like they're connected to something that's bigger than themselves are 5 times more likely to not just really perform well, but to even stay with the organization. So Patrick, I was excited to, talk about, your view on, what is the importance of purpose? And then there at Warmspace, like, how does purpose perhaps act as the glue?
Wow. You guys, you're like, there's wisdom all over the place here with you guys, right?
We're just getting warmed up, Patrick.
Come on, right? It's like,
I said, we could have done a 2-hour show.
That's deep, man. That's like deep stuff. That's like totally it, right? And here's what we've seen. I mean, just one thing on the trust thing to go back, right, is, if that's the pivot point, if you've got a process, a ritual, or whatever that can get you to 100% trust, imagine that. We can't even imagine that, right? But we measure that at our customers now. We had a customer in Japan. They just measured the hell out of it for 90 days, right? With a control team, with a not control team. And they saw the difference and it scared them. They were like, the 2 teams they gave us were at 4.2 out of 5 on all the 6 critical components. One of them is purpose. We'll get to that in a second. One of them is connection. One of them is I feel seen as a human, right? And unity and trust, right? 4.2, both teams. We say, man, that's pretty good. I mean, how are we going to improve on that? 4.2 out of 5. That's pretty good, right? I said, yeah, these are our 2 best teams. I said, wow, you're doing a proof of concept. You give us the best teams. Thank you very much, right? 30, 60, 90 days later, control team dropped down to 3.9 average on those 6 criteria. And the Warmspace team, 4.9. Oh, there it went, 4.9. The trust one, 5.0 out of 5. Boom, there it went, right? They were like, oh, this is too good. Japanese being very conservative sometimes, right? But I mean, just to know the science is clear, all the statistics from the studies that you guys mentioned are clear. And the minute you establish connection, trust will follow. The minute you've got trust, operational excellence is in the room, right? So, and that's important. And it's really crucial because it plays with purpose, right? And so I'll stop there for a second and then we can jump in there. But I just want to call that out, that these other factors, they play right into the purpose game.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So just thinking about that purpose a little bit more. So how does it act as kind of the glue for you guys in Warmspace? How's it leading you, your purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, I'd almost say like the whole machine is there in the companies, and the capitalistic engine is very efficient. We've had 150 years to kind of refine this puppy, and it's really badass, right? It really goes. It really goes. And the issue we've got with that machine now, as it's going much faster than it was designed to go, is the oil. You don't put the oil in, it's going to start grinding, and it's going to, sparks are flying. And so the glue and the oil, for me, I call it oil because you want to really smooth it out, and it gets real smooth, and it warms it up, and now the machine can really go without hurting things, right? And here's the thing about purpose. There's 3 layers in there that get very, very relevant when we go from purpose to meaning. That's the first step, right? Mm-hmm. Meaning is really, really important to people. Meaning has a much more personal context than just purpose of the team or the organization. And when we can connect our meaning to that purpose, now that glue is stronger. And that meaning is what really drives me more than purpose as the word. The meaning component that I fill into that purpose, that starts to tickle me, that starts to drive me. But there's an even deeper level underneath meaning. And it's called sense, the sense of things. Sometimes we say, this doesn't make sense. It means a deeper part of me is resisting the meaning. I don't have the meaning, the bridge to purpose. And the sense of things means common sense. And I say a lot of corporates would argue that we lost that, 37 years ago, 8 months, 12 days, 18 hours, 6 minutes, something like that, right? Somewhere along the way, the sense of things escaped us. And right now, with the speed of things moving, if we can't have that sense, true sense of me as a human being, connected to the meaning that we feel together as a group and a team, and connect that back to purpose in a truly highly connected state, where it's not happening in an offsite once every 12 months where we talk about purpose. No, where every single time we come together, the sense and the meaning is strong in us, and it aligns to the purpose. And the purpose can be shifting. What we need to get done can be changing all the time. But meaning shouldn't change as quickly. And the sense of things is like very, very holy ground, very sacred, and very important. And it's one of the things that's so invisible, we don't even know how to deal with it. It scares us as leaders, right? So I think that connection of those 3 layers, when we can play them well in our routines and our processes and our rituals, we start to address the fabric. Yeah. And that fabric is what decides the outcome 6 months or 6 years from now. And that's important, I think. Thank you.
That was beautifully put, Patrick. I love that. We've
We've
got an audience. We've got an audience question here. Let's bring that up. Let's see. So, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs who are looking to build a more human workplace?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would take the more human part and just ask the question. If you're an entrepreneur, usually, you don't have 142,000 people yet, you got a smaller group, is sit together, right? Have these conversations together, sit down together in a structured way, right? Now we do that in Warmspace. We ask questions like, who are we? Why are we here? Where do we want to go? What do we need to get there? What's in the way? What's the root cause? How do we fix it? What's your contribution? So these series of questions are the foundation where you even ask the question, what does more human mean for us? What's important for us? What are the values we stand on? And not just to write them down and put them on your website in your manifesto. But if those components are important, now the second question is, well, how do we establish that quality in our day-to-day? Maybe there's some things we do once a month to go after that. Here's some things we can do every day to make sure that what's important to us is actually happening. As an example, that we speak without interruption. That could be something important, whatever, we start with a check-in and we breathe a little bit, right? If someone gets really pissed and angry, we drink a glass of milk because maybe that helps. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. But what I'm saying is it's in your hands. In a fully empowered environment, we ask everyone that's part of the team those questions. And the results of those questions form the baseline of the fabric we're going to establish in our daily, weekly, and monthly routines. And that's essentially, I think, the best advice. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree too. Because I mean, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're in that startup space. You can really define, like Patrick talked about earlier, that higher meaning of what you're doing, or bringing that sense to what you're doing. And then as you're growing your business from there, you're sewing that golden thread through the fabric of everything you do. Right. So it's just vital. And this is what we always talk about with Bliss, building love into scalable systems. It's like audit your business with love in mind, and try and figure out every little part of it. Just keep doing that over and over again. Patrick, that brings us to a question here we ask every guest. Some form of this is, what role does love play in business, or should love play in business?
Breathe on that. What does love really mean to us? And the answer is it means everything. It's everything. It's the only thing that matters. At least when you get old, like I am, in your 60s, right? You're like, oh, damn. I wish I would have had more love in my life when I was a 2-year-old. My daddy was beating on me or something, right? You can't go back. You can't fix that, right? So true connection and deep bonds to one another, established through these routines and rituals that we talk about, they trigger oxytocin. It's the bonding hormone, right? 9 months of this in any organization, in a daily routine, which is, you're going to start getting bonded to those that you're connecting with, which means I will not give my life. And that oxytocin, it's during the pregnancy of our wives, it triggers to bond us to the woman. And when she's nursing the child, it takes 9 months for the man to bond biophysically to that child to protect it with its life. And that's the truth. And that bond is love. And that love is the strongest force of energy in the universe. And we, in the future of organizations, it's going to be about energy and creativity. And love is the magical substance that triggers the best in all of us in an instant. But to build towards that is 9 months of hard work, consistent work to build from connection to bonds of LOVE. And love is all that matters. And a good friend of mine, when he turned 70 in Japan, he had 400 people. He's now passed away. God bless his soul. Takashi Kiyuchi was his name. And he had 400 people come to his birthday party in this big conference area of a university. And there was a blackboard at the front. And they're drinking champagne and they're going to celebrate my friend. And all of a sudden you hear chalk scratching on the board. And there's a man at the front. And he's scratching a kanji symbol on the board. And he gets silent, completely silent. And he wrote the word love. And everyone in the room honored that. And the person that did it was the Minister of Interior of the country of Japan, writing down that the only thing that mattered on this day was love. So that's it. That's all that matters.
I wish we had Patrick on for another hour or two. We're going to have to have part 2 or 3 on this. We're scratching the surface here.
The purpose, meaning, trust, and love episodes. Patrick, like Stephen was saying, right? We could be going on and on and on. But really for those that want to learn a little bit more about the work that you're doing, experiencing perhaps Warmspace, where can they find you? Where should they follow up?
Yeah, absolutely. Warmspace.io is where you find us. or just Google, if you even do that anymore. My young son says, no, Dad, you chat GPT. You don't Google anymore,
chat it.
right? You chat, go find. He who searches shall find, they say. Absolutely. Pleasure to be with you guys. And much more will ensue because we're all on the mission to find a way. And there'll be millions of ways to do this. We're just one small example for the world. So glad to be here and a pleasure.
Indeed. Thank you, Patrick, for joining us. Thank you for showing us how the future of work is definitely being built on trust, empathy, human connection, and love. And to our listeners, remember, innovation, it begins with people. And, we gave you a whole bunch of stats in this episode and everything. So it's not just, nice to haves. It's not just, if you've got that leader out there who needs those stats, we've given them to you. But I think maybe listening to this, you can understand the sense of what we're saying, hopefully, in all of our shows about this kind of the bliss business that we want to run. We'll see you next time on the Bliss Business Podcast.